The dark waters of the Caribbean have become a battlefield, and the world is watching closely. In the early hours of September 15th, 2025, U.S. forces struck hard against a Venezuelan narco crew, sinking their vessel and sending a powerful message. America will no longer tolerate cartels poisoning its people. President Trump has made it clear. Every cartel boat is a target, every smuggler a threat, and every operation a warning that U.S. power will be used without hesitation. But here's the question. Are these decisive strikes against narco-traffickers a turning point in the global drug war? Hi, before we continue, one click on the subscribe button fuels all the effort behind this and every future video. Let's break it down exactly how U.S. forces captured cartel crews, destroyed their boats, and tightened the noose on Maduro's narco state. At dawn on September 15th, 2025, U.S. military intelligence tracked a Venezuelan narco vessel moving quickly through international waters. The crew had been monitored since leaving the Venezuelan coast, believed to be transporting large quantities of cocaine and fentanyl, the same deadly substances responsible for killing hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. When ordered to stop, the smugglers ignored commands and accelerated. That decision sealed their fate. With precision-guided munitions, U.S. forces struck, destroying the vessel instantly. 3 cartel members were killed, others were detained, and the remaining contraband was lost to the sea. This was not just a strike, it was a statement of American resolve under President Trump's leadership. Just 2 weeks earlier, another dramatic operation had unfolded. U.S. Navy destroyers intercepted a cartel boat linked to Venezuela's Tren de Aragua gang. Again, orders to halt were ignored. The vessel attempted to flee into open waters. In response, the Navy fired, sinking the boat and eliminating 11 smugglers on board. Officials confirmed that the wreckage contained scattered cocaine and fentanyl, proof that the vessel was trafficking drugs bound for the United States. The back-to-back strikes sent a message to the cartels and to the Venezuelan regime. The era of weak enforcement was over. Mike Howell, head of the Oversight Project, summed it up bluntly. This is the only language the cartels speak, power and force. And under President Trump's authority, that's exactly what they're going to get. His statement reflected what many in Washington and across America believe.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is the only language that the cartels speak. It's power and it's force. And I'm glad we finally have a president who understands that under the president's broad authorities to, combat imminent threats to the United States, which include drugs that have poisoned hundreds of thousands of Americans to death, he will take you out. That is the message that has been sent.
That the war on drugs requires decisive military power, not empty negotiations. President Trump himself reinforced the message, telling reporters that there was undeniable proof of cartel activity. All you have to do is look at the cargo spattered across the ocean, he declared. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl, proof these were cartel boats. His words directly countered critics who questioned whether the vessels posed an immediate threat.
Do you plan to provide proof that these were narco-terrorists who were on their way to the U.S.?
But you don't have to see it because we have recorded proof and evidence. We have proof. All you have to do is look at the cargo that was like it's spattered all over the ocean. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the place.
The administration's stance is simple. Drugs that start in South America eventually destroy lives in American communities. And that chain of death must be broken at the source. Meanwhile, Nicolás Maduro's regime in Venezuela called the strikes an attack on sovereignty and labeled them acts of aggression. His foreign minister, Yvonne Gil, demanded that the United States immediately cease operations, claiming that innocent fishermen had been targeted. On September 12th, for example, U.S. Navy destroyers boarded a Venezuelan fishing vessel, searched it for hours, but found no contraband. Caracas seized on that incident to argue that Washington's actions were reckless. At the same time, Venezuela appealed to the United Nations, portraying the operations as illegal military aggression. But President Trump's answer was clear and sharp. If I were a fisherman, I wouldn't want to be mistaken for a smuggler, he said. Every vessel in the Caribbean is now a potential narco boat, and if they choose to run, they're making a dangerous choice. The U.S. military presence in the region has expanded dramatically to back up these words. Stealth F-35 fighter jets were deployed to Puerto Rico, putting advanced American air power just minutes away from Venezuelan shores. Guided missile destroyers, submarines, and surveillance planes now patrol Caribbean waters daily, leaving no space for cartel vessels to hide. Support aircraft, including C-5 Galaxy transports, C-17 Globemaster IIIs, and DC-46 refueling tankers, provide the logistical backbone for sustained operations. For the first time in decades, the Caribbean has become a theater of large-scale U.S. military enforcement. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, during a visit to Puerto Rico, described the mission bluntly. This is about protecting the American homeland from drugs that have killed over 300,000 of our people in a single year. Make no mistake, this is national security. The presence of top U.S. military leaders underscored the seriousness of the campaign and signaled that the U.S. would not back down, regardless of political criticism. On the ground, resistance is already visible. Protests erupted in Puerto Rico on September 14th, where demonstrators warned against turning the island into a staging point for war. At the same time, Maduro called on the Venezuelan militia to prepare for defense. Teachers, retirees, and municipal workers lined up to join his Bolivarian militia, pledging to resist U.S. aggression. But while Maduro rallies supporters at home, millions of Venezuelans continue to flee his collapsing economy, searching for safety abroad. That contradiction speaks volumes about the reality of life under his narco-state. Meanwhile, the United States has continued targeting cartel operations beyond the Caribbean. In early September, the U.S. Coast Guard launched Operation Pacific Viper, intercepting a narco boat south of the Galapagos Islands. Nearly 13,000 pounds of cocaine were seized, 7 smugglers detained, and the boat set ablaze. In total, 40,000 pounds of cocaine have been intercepted during this operation, averaging over 1,600 pounds per day. The statistics demolish claims by Venezuelan officials that U.S. enforcement is misplaced. Instead, the evidence shows that Washington is striking cartels on every front: the Pacific, the Caribbean, and land routes at the U.S. border. Still, tensions are mounting. Venezuelan fighter jets have buzzed U.S. naval ships, forcing President Trump to issue a direct warning. His administration has formally classified cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, aligning them with groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Under this doctrine, narco-traffickers are no longer just criminals. They are terrorists who threaten U.S. security. At the same time, Trump has authorized the Department of Justice and DEA to continue seizing assets linked to Maduro's inner circle. Over $700 million in property and cash has been confiscated. The DEA has tied at least 30 tons of seized cocaine directly to Venezuelan officials, evidence of how deeply the regime is embedded in cartel networks. This growing body of proof is why the United States placed a $50 million bounty on Maduro, higher than the historical rewards for Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden. To Washington, Maduro is no longer just a political adversary. He is a kingpin presiding over a narco-terror state. That assessment has support from regional allies like Trinidad and Tobago, which praised the U.S. operations for addressing the cartel violence that has destabilized Caribbean nations for years. However, not all nations agree. Cuba, Nicaragua, and Bolivia have thrown their support behind Maduro, raising the stakes for a possible regional confrontation. If tensions escalate further, the Caribbean could become the front line of a geopolitical struggle with global consequences. Analysts warn that such a conflict would carry enormous risks, but supporters of the Trump administration argue that the risks of inaction are even greater. Without enforcement, cartels will continue flooding America with poison, destroying lives and communities. The broader truth remains: drugs from South America kill Americans every single day. Cartels profit while U.S. families bury their loved ones. And for Trump, ICE, the DEA, and the U.S. military, the mission is crystal clear: stop the cartels before their poison reaches U.S. soil. The strikes on September 15th and the weeks before are only the beginning of this campaign. With advanced technology, expanded military presence, and unwavering presidential backing, the United States has shown it is ready to fight this war at every level. The question now is simple. Would you rather see cartel boats sailing freely toward America, or U.S. forces standing firm to intercept, sink, and destroy them before they arrive? If you believe in protecting our neighborhoods, securing our borders, and supporting the heroes of CE, the DEA, and our military, then stand with us.